so pleased and honored to introduce our next conversation on the tipping point for human rights. The global goals put human rights and dignity at their moral center, yet we all know the challenges of making that real for so many people around the world. Please join me in welcoming Stacey Martinet, Chief Marketing Officer for Mashable, Dr. Gro Brundtland, Deputy Chair of the Elders and former Prime Minister of Norway, and Graca Machel, human rights activist and member of the Elders. Thank you.
Social Good Summit, and we're all about technology. We're going to kick off with an amazing video.
Some of us.
All right, let's roll it.
Some of us have been in charge of countries.
Or Secretary General of the United Nations.
We have all witnessed history on the front lines.
Where there's war and abject poverty.
But also hope. We don't just believe change is possible, we know.
We are the elders.
We work for peace and human rights.
We believe a just and equitable world is possible.
We do not despair.
We never give up.
And neither should you.
Join us and work towards a better world.
So it's an honor for me to be up here, but I think for all of us in this room and watching online to be in the presence of two powerful people who have not only led change, but inspired a new generation. And the goals that we're hearing about today, they're heavy. And 15 years is not a long time, as you could probably tell us. And so I want to start out on an inspirational note as our role models. What do you think we have achieved since the last 15 years? If you want to start, Mrs. Machel.
Yes, I think we managed to bring the global family to rally around a common framework, which were the MDGs. And this has brought us to a level where the convergence and the synergies of our efforts produce these unprecedented results, which we have seen. Examples have been given here, like reduction of child mortality. Maternal mortality, we didn't do so well, but we did significantly well in access to education. We are still challenged with issues of quality, but in essence, we learn to work together in a focused way and also having the preoccupation of having results, deliver results, yeah.
Yeah, and Dr. Brundtland, from your point of view, what have we achieved?
Well, you know, as Graca said, the Millennium Development Goals rallied people together, the world together, in a way that hadn't happened really before. However, and as you say, many of those results that we now can celebrate have been influenced by the fact that the millennium was used for the leaders to engage and to agree on these goals. It helped push them forward. And now, 15 years later, as we have the Sustainable Development Goals, it took some time for many to kind of not just say, we need to continue with them. They loved the Millennium Development Goals so much that they were questioning whether it was right to start something new. But the problem of the Millennium Development Goals was that at the turn of the century, the world was not ready to integrate environment, sustainable development into those goals. It was a development and human rights agenda, which is very important. But it lacked the reality that we are dependent on planet Earth.
So we talk a lot about technology at this conference, and we just had Jimmy Wales talking about how many more people are going to be coming online over the next few years. What role do you think technology will play in helping us achieve these goals, or not?
Well, it certainly will play a big role. We can see, such as in this social summit, how that has brought people together. And there are so many other initiatives also that lead in the same direction. Nobody really has no possible access to knowledge with the type of technology that we now already have, and has spread across Africa with mobile phones. And it's, you know, in my mind, I could never have imagined that Africa would already have the spread of technology. If you had asked me at the turn of the century, I wouldn't have imagination enough to think that that were possible. So, and again, there is a lot more that can be done, and which many people are engaged in doing. So we are now one big family linked together, also through good technology.
Right. I mean, we're now a global society with a global language on the internet.
Completely different way than just 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Let me add another aspect of what technology does. It gives the space for people who in the past did not count. They were not part of the modern society in which we are. And from the human rights point of view, I think this is extremely important. It has opened an opportunity for people, wherever they are, to have the possibility of making their voice count. It's not only to be heard, it's to count. And it gives you identity, and in the process, I think it gives you dignity as part of the human family. And I hope that the more we expand access to everyone, because it's not yet to everyone, the more we manage to expand to everyone, we'll use it better, so that it's not from this side to that side, but in both ways. And we can interact much better in the sense that we build that common space in which all of us, we have a sense of belonging. And where we belong, where we count, where we are part of shaping the global agenda together, and we are part of implementing a common agenda as well. Let me touch a little bit on the MDGs. One of the, if I can call, weakness of MDGs is that they were an agenda for the poor. But the SDGs, they bring us to a space in which everyone takes a stake. Whether you are in developed world, whether you are in a developing country, whether you are in an island, whether you are living in the pole, wherever you are, you look at the SDGs, you will find yourself there. You have a stake, you have responsibility, you are part. And I think this is a change in the way we identify ourselves as interdependent of one another, and coming to the issue of also the SDGs having put quite strongly the idea of people and planet, interrelated in such a way. It's not us as people alone, but we need a planet which can sustain life. We need to protect a planet which is going to transmit to future generations a possibility of full potential. So I think there's importance in the change which the SDGs are bringing.
Yeah, and I think in the last 15 years, we've seen the definition of what leadership means change. And you've both been leaders in many different ways and have very interesting paths. And I wonder what, you know, the leaders in this room, the people who are participating online because they want to lead. I mean, they're showing up today to be part of the conversation. What advice do you have for leadership in this new world that we're entering?
Well, you know, the most important thing, anytime a student or someone asks me about leadership, I say you need to be yourself, you need to use your voice, you need to convey messages and inspiration to others, but that means it has to come from your heart and your own mind. You can never be a good leader if what you say and do is not part of your true personality. You know, today many people don't believe in politicians because they are not always convinced that what I just now said is what's happening. And that's very unfortunate and very dangerous in a world that depends on its leaders. Its leaders in civil society, its leaders, you know, in the teaching profession, leaders at university, and certainly leaders of government. We need leadership at every level and every place. And it has to truly be leaders that are conveying a common cause, working on behalf of others. I mean, why would you be elected to be part of your country's way of making decisions and doing the right thing, unless you are doing it on behalf of your own people?
People, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that, on leadership today?
Yes. Within the elders, we always talk of ethical leadership. It's not a question of being in a position of influence or in a position where you can make decisions.
Power.
Power. It is the ethics which have to guide every decision you make, every action you are involved in, and always knowing that when you are in position of leadership, you are there to serve. I think part of the why people do not believe very much in certain kind of leadership is that they seem to convey the message of serving a small group, a certain class, and they exclude others. So leadership has to, whether you are in politics, whether you are in business, whether you are in academics or you are in social movement, always you take that leadership because you're prepared to serve. There's a cause which is much bigger than yourself. It's much bigger than a small group you may seem to represent. And I think this is what we need to move at. I would like to talk very quickly of youth leadership.
Please do.
Nowadays. I always challenge young people when they say, oh, you know, the elders, they're not doing this, the old people are not doing this. I said, yes, that is true. But you have to build yourself in a way you prepare to take the challenge of being in position of power, but you keep this ethical behavior. Because you can get there and you can also power corrupt. That's what I mean.
Well, especially now things move so quickly.
Yeah, so you can be young, it's not enough. You need to be very clear in terms of the purpose, why you need to take a position of leadership and what you want to change and benefit of the majority of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So last question, it wouldn't be fair if we didn't ask for your sage advice, because I know you have so much, but just very quickly, for anyone who wants to be a part of this change of the next 15 years, what's your advice on how to get involved or make an impact?
You know, there are so many opportunities. I mean, what drives you? What interests you? Do you want to enter into the more, political field? Or are you a typical, activist person that would think of joining others in some kind of social movement or NGO? Or are you more of an individual that will prefer to use social media and spread your vision? You know, there are so many ways and people are different. But we can all do something. Yeah. Nobody can say, I can do nothing. And we can usually do more together. But that doesn't mean that somebody who is of a different nature can just lean back and say, I do nothing because others can do it. No, every one of us is responsible for the future of all of us.
Yeah, I mean, there's no more excuses now. We're all interconnected. We all have these
We all
tools,
can do
big,
something.
small. We can all do something. And is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, let me just make it more than, instead of advice, it's an appeal. That everyone should educate himself or herself about the goals, to know what are they, what do they mean, how do I not only get engaged, but I take responsibility. I think what the goals bring is the opportunity for everyone to take responsibility. No one can sit there and finger point that other people or other institutions have to make it happen. We all have a space to make a difference. So you will not engage with them if you do not know what the goals are. And of course, in your space then, once you have internalized them, make your own plan. And to say, in 15 years' time, where do I want to take this agenda? Changing me, but changing the world. You make your personal agenda in terms of where you would like the world to be in 15 years and what is your contribution in your specific area. I think this is how we can build this movement which Gro is talking about. It will be youth, it will be women, it will be different professionals, it will be politicians, academics, but we need to make it our personal agenda to change the world and to make it what we want it to be.
Yeah, it's our responsibility.
Absolutely.
No more excuses. Well, I wish we had more time. We have so many ideas here to cram into the summit, but I want to thank you for spending time with the Social Good Summit community, for your leadership, for being role models. Ladies and gentlemen, huge round of applause for these two amazing people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.